Good evening.
Hey, Benny!
Hello. How is
We were
everyone?
we had no intro music, so you took everyone by surprise. I think.
Where is it? Where's the intro?
I think Pete's sleeping.
Is he really? You enjoyed the paper, madame? That's good. Thanks, Crypto J. Yeah, might be your speaker. Can everybody else hear me?
Should be able to.
It might be you, Hero Gamer. Yeah, that. Believe it or not, I think it's like I've been sitting here for days and I've been thinking about the market and stuff like that, and I was thinking, you can't do things and say things that make people feel better about markets or downtrends. But what you can do is you can start making. We're doing stuff on the tech stage that's a bit progressive. Then why shouldn't we start to give a bit more visibility and start moving towards these real world companies and show projections and give you guys a better indication of what goes on behind the scenes, because the whole crypto space is shrouded in mystery and nobody knows what's going on. And we run much more like a traditional company in that sense. So we thought we just might start giving greater transparency and letting people know what's involved. And hopefully that helps a bit. No problems. It actually, hello, mate. It actually took 5 days to pull it together, to piece it together. Probably 5 hours or 6 hours a day for over 25 hours or so to get it together. But I think what it will do is it'll lead to a lot of different content to come out of it, and it's paved the way for us to sort of do tons more of that type of stuff going forward. So that's what I was talking to you about last week. I said I've been writing some stuff if you want us to share it, and that's what I was talking. I normally, Crypto J, I do blogs, like even how to build a rocket. I did that in like an hour or so. Normally takes about 30 minutes to an hour to do a blog. So something like that, though, was a lot of time. Madame, that's technically speaking, that's what I wanted to get across in the paper is if this is, people said, you bought the media company. Why would you acquire a media company and then not release it? Why would you build a cashback and streaming app and not actually release it? Doesn't make sense. But the thing is, our model is one after another, 200-day cycles. And what we worked out was if you do it that way, it's going to take us years to finish what we wanted to do. So we just got to go faster, harder at the same time and just bring on a ton more people to help us. No mention of Princess KOGs and their future utility. They'll allow you to have a pink tutu in the virtual space. Here again, a question. Would you increase the core team to increase the speed of development? We have, to a certain extent, done that 100%. We've gone from, 3 people at the start to well over 30 in the core team. And how many contractors have we got now, Pete? If you consider all the people that we've got on contracts and the third parties that we work with on contract basis, it's a lot. We've got
Benny, today itself, after our 2 new hires, we hit 40 permanent staff.
So we got 40 permanent.
Yeah, the contracts, I got no idea. I mean, we got like a lot. We'll probably have at least 40, if not more.
There's a lot of people. So, but Hero Gamer, here's the frustrating thing that I've learned, and hand on heart, I don't profess that I knew this prior. I've done lots of build outs, I've done lots of turnarounds and all the rest of it, but the type of stuff we're building and the type of tech that you're using, you can't just throw people at it because there's not enough people that understand it. And unfortunately, when you're dealing with new tech that not that many people understand, putting more people on it means there's more chances of mistakes or too many people muddling it. So what you've got to do is get the traditional stuff done by you can throw people behind, but a lot of this contract writing and blockchain side of things is much harder to just throw it than just throwing people at it. It was on TV. Wow, Gary Gensler. There were several delays in the past with launching of some product mainly to be able to improve the higher level. Does this kind of improvements ever come to an end at a point where you'll be happy with every detail? George 74, the answer to that question is the reverse, actually. So the delays come from the fact that we want to get things out closer together. We want to click them together. And I've said in previous chats that, hand on heart, I would say the time for us to try and build stuff from scratch is gone. We have to start clicking things together. We understand we have to move fast because we've already got stuff off the ground. If you look at personality type, you'd keep going until in startups, you never put a perfect product out to market. So you put an MVP, you look for product fit and traction, and then you pump lots of time, energy, and money into it, and not before then. Not before you've got that product market fit. Geez, that's a scary picture. Yeah, I didn't know who Gary Gensler was. So does that? I hope that makes sense. Yes. So just before we've got a. I'll answer any other questions you've got really quickly because we've got. I know that paper's got probably going to spawn a lot of questions, but we've got a special guest tonight, so I'd like to. I'll let Philip say hello as well. I think you're here, Philip. Rasha had a question above.
You guys talking to me? Sorry, man. You pinged me as I stepped away for 2 seconds.
Oh, here we go. Does the recent? Oh, here we go. Great question. So I'll ask Philip. We were saying we've got a special guest that we'll introduce, but just before I do that, I will answer Rasha's question. Does the recent volatility in the market highlight the vulnerability of using something like RFOX's money? An example is that for me, that I won't be able to buy as many edition 3 packs as I wanted because RFOX and wax are down so much in value. Is this a concern? Rasha, I actually completed that paper that I released today with the line. Unfortunately, the markets dictate the business's value from a crypto perspective. And what we're working towards is having the business dictate the business value. And to do that, you can't have memes, you can't have awesome jingles and stuff like that. It has to be products, it has to be services, and it has to be users. And to answer your question in short, yes, volatility will always remain until adoption is nearer. And once you get into play-to-earn systems, and we can actually talk about that, the stability is something that is definitely. So, Philip.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Who have we got here tonight?
We have a very special guest. Very excited. We have Leah on the line with us, and she is a up-and-coming, well-renowned documentary filmmaker. I'm going to let her do the intros herself, but hopefully a lot of you have seen the work that she's done in the region. She's currently based in the Philippines, and in particular, she's covering a lot of incredibly relevant stuff to us, which is obviously the play-to-earn, participate-to-earn business models. So without further ado, this is going to be the first of obviously a series of different types of intro guests, roundtables that we're going to be having. But Leah, are you there?
I sure am, and I have to laugh because that was such a wonderful and kind introduction. Thank you so much, Phil. I just never thought I'd hear anyone say the words, "We're welcoming Leah, who is an up-and-coming documentary filmmaker." Um, I can tell you the backstory to how it all came about, but I really appreciate that kind introduction, and thanks for inviting me here tonight.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, what I would like the format to be, obviously, it's very conversational. The teams here have a lot of questions that they post in the general chat, but I would really like you and Ben to, go through some questions and just have a dialogue. You guys are both on familiar turf, both obviously Australian and everything else, and now based in Southeast Asia. So I'm sure you've got a lot of things to talk about, and of course, the meat and the rest of the really good stuff is going to be coming in a series of content that we're going to be posting. But you're also part of our weekly AMA this week, which I will be publishing in the background whilst you guys chat.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, great to chat again, Ben. It's good to hear from you again.
Yes, welcome along, and I'm sure they love hearing from another Aussie, which is great. But I think to kick it off and to get it started, we've got a lot of staunch collectors and avid collectors here that have been with KOGs and RFOX games since the start. And you've obviously just covered Axie. Now, Axie had a lot of people cover them with them for a long, long time before their journey sort of came to fruition and they started to get underway with the proper play to earn and stuff like that. Perhaps you could do a little, explain a little bit about the impacts that you've seen from play to earn, especially in the Southeast Asian region, and how important you think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I could stress the significance of this movement enough. I came across it really at the peak of the lockdowns here in the Philippines, and I'm not sure where everyone is coming from tonight in the AMA. I'd love to know where everyone's based, but here in the Philippines, the lockdowns were really strict, and that was very hard for a lot of people who tend to earn day to day. They do cash in hand jobs. They might drive a tricycle, or they might have a food cart where they're just selling food on the street each day. And obviously, if you're locked down at home, you can't sell anything. And look, there was some relief from the government. Oh, I'm seeing lots of flags pop up. That is awesome. More flags, please. And wow, they're from everywhere in the world. This is super cool. Yes. So there was some relief from the government, but it was very little. I think in total it was like less than $300 that families got. And, in the Philippines, there's big families. So you might have like 5 kids and you've got $300 to survive on for more than 6 months. So people were literally living on rice. But I guess the interesting thing about a lot of these developing countries, particularly in Southeast Asia, is that they are certainly underserved economies, but it's not like they're not smart and ambitious and willing to work hard. And everybody has a mobile phone, which is the really key thing, a mobile phone and an internet connection. So I guess what happened in, amid these lockdowns where people were struggling, word started to spread about this game that you could play, which was actually really cool, and you could, have a lot of fun doing, but make money at the same time, which almost sounded too good to be true to most people when they're in such a dire situation. I guess the catch was that people are always like, oh, it sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? And the catch is that it's not easy to earn in-game rewards and then learn how to cash them out to, to local fiat, in our case, Philippine pesos. You've got to learn the ins and outs of Ethereum and decentralized exchanges, and then, regulated exchanges and off-ramps and all these sorts of things. But the incentive to go through all of that was incredibly high. And, it's kind of like a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, when it's actually a super fun game to play in order to earn those rewards in the first place. So the culmination of all of that was that, oh, hi, Australian. We've got quite a few Aussies. I'm actually seeing a lot of Aussie flags pop up now, which is so good. And in answer to someone else's question early before, I've been here in the Philippines since 2018. So, and I've never lived in Manila. I've always been in the kind of rural locations. So making this documentary was a cool opportunity for me to be able to show the Philippines that I know and love, as opposed to kind of the idyllic beaches and tourist destinations that most people know it for. But yeah, I guess what happened with this NFT game was that it actually became a pathway for people to learn about crypto and, jump through all of those hoops that are required in order to make it part of their everyday life, which is really nothing short of exceptional. I fell in love with the story because I feel like, being an Australian, understanding... Oh, Tagalog, konti lang. Sorry. my Tagalog is not very good. Yeah, like coming from a Western culture, I kind of feel like most of the startups that come out of the Western world, they're all targeted at Western people. And the thing about crypto is that if you've already got a bank account, if you've got a credit card, if you've got access to capital, if you're already on trading platforms, then you probably don't really need an alternative financial system. And what's exciting about NFT games in the Philippines and other emerging economies is that, people really do need something different. They're actively looking for an alternative to the traditional banking system, and they also need different ways to be able to earn money. So, yeah, it was just kind of like this perfect storm during COVID-19, this awful, awful time where something really beautiful came out of it. And lo and behold, we got the wonderful opportunity to tell that story through mini documentary.
Fantastic. And, I think that it's for those who don't live in the region, I think, because we hear you talked about it and it's on the documentary, people saying it sounds too good to be true and you can make this magical internet money. But the thing is that a lot of people outside of this region have sort of said, well, you can't make enough money to live on, and that's not enough money to be able to do anything substantial with. But as time's gone on, those play to earn mechanics have grown and grown. But people also probably don't realise that the difference in cost of living in this part of the world, and therefore how much of a significant impact this movement's actually had on many people's lives.
Yeah, and the impact is huge, and I think it's only kind of getting bigger. Like when I originally came across this story, it was August 2020, and I will admit that I'm a huge advocate for NFTs and digital rights now, but back then I was one of those people who didn't really understand the full application potential of NFTs. And look, I'd been pitched them so many times, and it was more like people telling me to, collectible sneakers on a blockchain or something, and I just didn't care. I'm more motivated by use cases that actually show they're making an impact on people's lives. But at that time, I couldn't really see how NFTs would deliver that. So yeah, it was August 2020. I saw this tweet. It was from my friend Callon Butler, who's now the head of Binance Southeast Asia, and he said that someone had paid their kids school fees by playing this blockchain game, which immediately caught my interest. And then I saw Gabby Dizon, who's the co-founder of Yield Guild Games, which is a gaming guild that represents players of NFT games. And he was saying the same thing, that, people were doing all these extraordinary things, like, paying for milk for their babies, or putting food on the table, or paying the debts through playing this game, which, again, it always seems to come back to, like, it sounds way too good to be true. So, yeah, I just kind of, I guess the investigatory journalist in me kind of came out, and I wanted to go and find out what was happening. And yeah, when I started to dig into it, it was actually even better than the surface suggested. So since then, we've seen people, they're buying blocks of land with their in-game reward tokens. They're buying, there was a 22-year-old who bought 2 houses. People have bought like motorbikes and upgraded their mobile phone and bought digital devices for their kids so they could do homeschooling. People have paid off their debts. One woman who was in our documentary, Sabrina, she's a mum of 2, and she told us that after she lost her job, she used to lay awake at night feeling just so full of worry because her savings were dwindling and she had no idea how she was going to provide for her children. And, you know, just to make it worse, she felt like she had to put on a brave face for the kids every day just so that they wouldn't know how bad the situation was. And she, with her last money that she had in the bank, she'd heard about all these other people in the community playing Axie, and she thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. She went and spent her last money on an Axie team. Within the first month, she'd paid the whole lot back and paid the bills. And in the second month, she had, started earning profits, and she invested that into things for her children. And she told us recently, so we kind of did like a follow-up thing because I met her in January and we did a follow-up in May. And she told us that she used to believe that her life was just a debt cycle. It was just earn money, spend money, owe it to other people, find a way to pay it back. That was her life. And she said, now my life is earn money, spend money, have more money left over to save, and then figure out what to spend the extra money on, more things to spend on, and think about my future, which is just, extraordinary. And like, in saying all of this, though, I think we kind of have to remember too that there are risks involved, and this isn't, a perfect system, and we are kind of in the throes of a bull market. So I don't want to sit here and kind of tell everyone that this is, the whole world's problem solved in one go. But it is the beginning of something extraordinary, and there's some really fantastic companies and DAOs and people surrounding themselves, with the issues that are coming into this space and figuring out how to solve them. So I'm very excited about where it's going.
100%. Actually, a couple of things. I'll see if I can kill two birds with one stone here. As far as the Slam game that's about to come out for RFOX, the question was asked, what's the revenue model? How does it impact RFOX holders? How our revenue model works is it's a balanced side of you can actually play for free. Then you can actually start to do your play to earn and play for keeps. And the whole idea is to actually create on the demand side. So we've spent a long time on the demand side to make sure that obviously outweighs the outgoing. And then we're actually reinvesting those profits into the outgoing to grow those communities. So that will be explained further very shortly. But as far just one thing that on your point, Leah, I have a son who is in the Philippines, and he's in a provincial area as well, and he's been stuck there for the majority of COVID, and they had their whole region locked down. But when I was talking to him and the way he views things, and he talks about these types of economies and models, he goes to school on his computer, on his laptop, logs out from school, logs straight back on, and that's his time that he spends with his friends, and it's all done online now. The world is completely changing for a lot of these kids, and this is what they'll know going forwards. But I shared this story with the group before. I was talking to him about 1.5 years ago, and I said, what do you want to do when you're older? And he said, I'm going to work inside of a video game like Roblox. And I said, right, what are you going to do? And then he said, you can do anything you like. You can be a doctor, and you don't even have to go to university. You can actually have a team of 9 people and win building contracts, and people will pay you to construct buildings inside of these worlds. And you can make more money being a builder inside of these worlds than you could be in a builder outside. And it's just mind-blowing to think that 9-year-old kids have this type of thing on their radar, and they firmly understand that the world we grew up in is not the world they're going to grow up in. This is probably just expedient the adoption for kids in these types of digital economies.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. I guess the thing that worries me about that is that, at the moment, people don't value their digital rights. They don't value their true digital assets, and they don't realize that platforms like Roblox are not actually allowing players and contributors to own the investment that they make in these virtual worlds. And that's what really concerns me. Like, I actually said in the AMA today that I had a discussion with a friend who just couldn't get her head around the fact that people were spending so much money on virtual land. And her argument was, well, but the internet is infinite. So, you know, why would you spend that much money on one piece of land when I could just go and create infinite pieces of land anywhere I like? Like, there's no end to it. And this really is the crux of the problem in the metaverse, is that, you know, most normies who are kind of outside this space, they don't understand the value of digital assets, and they don't value their digital assets because there is no scarcity, there's no authenticity, there's no provenance, there is no ownership. In fact, we pay for the right to be able to live our lives online through our data, and essentially data is a lot more valuable than oil or gold or Bitcoin or anything, really. And we give it away freely. And I think that's really frightening that a lot of people don't realize that, or they take it for granted. So, you know, I guess that's what really inspires me about this space, like working with people like yourself, Benny, who get it, that, you know, we need to be building player-owned economies, not more platforms.
100%. That's why I think the most important thing for us, when we sat down about 2.5 years ago now to sort of say, what can we do in the gaming space? And we're fortunate enough to get tackled up with Art Klegger. And we sort of sat down and said, what are the big problems? And to your point, 100% true. What he was saying was people are spending thousands of hours in these video games and worlds. They're spending thousands of dollars on avatars and items. And the game providers can literally just shut down the servers and it's all gone. Sorry. You've got assets that belong to the platform or the game. They're non-transferable. If you do try and sell them, there's a 70% OTC fraud rate. There has to be a better way to be able to work out how to say that these things that you've bought and earned belong to you, and there has to be a more contributive way to do it. So when we first started out with KOGs, what we said was they're keys to other games, that NFTs can be used across a number of different games. But what we wanted to do was provide the opportunity for people to come in and through SDKs, monetize their own games, have the chance to create games, have the chance to create assets that plug in. And we wanted to make it so that it was much more of a situation of, this is not a big corporate body who is trying to take 30% of everything that you do and make it so that you don't own things. What it should be is a mass adoption of the technology and a chance for people to come together and very, very importantly, unlock value in the digital economy. And I think that as we sort of caught the lucky break, because as you said, some good things came out of COVID, and one of those was every single person in the world pretty much simultaneously tested the limits of the digital offerings. Everybody was online, and we worked out very quickly we're falling very well short of where we should be. And even though people are more connected than they've ever been, they're more disconnected from a human perspective. So we tried to work out how do you still maintain an immersive experience and give people a chance to create, earn, be rewarded for their time in a way that still remains legal, respects all the laws of the different countries and gives people this fair chance.
Yeah, and look, you just mentioned before, I just want to pick up on something. You talked about the potential for platforms to be shut down. And, you know, it's interesting because often when you talk to people about people trading NFTs between each other and the player-owned economy, I think a lot of people sort of say, oh, that's not anything new. People have been, like World of Warcraft gold farming is an old school concept, and it was actually somewhat exploitative, not somewhat, totally exploitative, of a lot of people who, kind of fell victim to a profit-driven movement. And people, kind of assume that is what's happening in the NFT space at the moment, which it's not. The first thing, night, Lenny, thanks for joining. I think the main thing to point out is that, firstly, people don't realize that all of these platforms that we know and love and contribute to and spend our lives on online, they actually own everything that we contribute to, and we really get nothing back. And there are real world examples of this happening right now. Like, for example, Tencent, which, by revenue is the largest games publisher in the world, is currently suing a platform called DD373.com for $6.2 million in damages for allowing their players to trade in-game items via that platform. And, that is a reminder that, players contribute incredible value to these platforms, and game publishers like Tencent are not, or platforms like Tencent are not willing to share that, and their business model relies on controlling that revenue. So it is very much a threat to their business model to actually decentralize that and give value back to the players. But when you were talking about, how do we generate genuine connections between people and real communities? To me, the first step to that is decentralization, because anything else, this is just my opinion, but anything else is a farce in terms of what is a real community. I don't know. Obviously, I'm biased, blockchain all the way.
Yeah, I think to your point though, there's a lot of in this space there's maximalists and there's people that are very headstrong in their opinions and stuff like that. But the thing that I think is important to point out with the decentralization is a lot of people have actually learned their definition of decentralization through their contact with some of these so-called projects in this space. And they're unfortunately the approach to decentralization has been, we've got systems for you decide, but it's heavily rigged, or the top token holders control all of the outcomes. But the decentralization that you're talking about and the actual real definition of decentralization is obviously imperative for a lot of these. This technology would not be able to really make the inroads that it needs to make if it wasn't, because otherwise we're just offering a vanilla service packaged in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And, I have to say, when I first learned about KOGs, and also the name is not lost on me, Keys to Other Games is such a fantastic name because it really speaks to the future interoperability potential of these games. And when we talk about the potential for platforms to be shut down, and as I said before, this is happening every single day. Like at the moment, I think it's the Chinese version of Call of Duty is being shut down in August, but they were accepting in-game payments from players right up until June or July or something. It's ridiculous. This is not fair on players, but platforms are willing to do it because they benefit. But if we look at NFTs, and this is something that I can't take credit for because I learned it from a good friend Yatsu at Animoca Brands. He talks about NFTs as through them the game actually becomes about the content and not the platform. So if player-owned economy and everything is focused around the content that we bring to the games, it doesn't matter if someone shuts down the platform. It doesn't matter if a virtual world can't be accessed anymore because maybe the server center caught on fire or something like that. There's literally nothing that could happen that could prevent you from enjoying the game that you love because it's centered around the content that you invested in and developed. So, for example, if I bought an F1 Delta Time car and for whatever reason the F1 Delta Time game was shut down, perhaps I could take it somewhere else and race it on someone else's track or drive it through Decentraland or, do with it whatever I will, because my experience becomes about the content that I own. And I think, the rhetoric of keys to other games speaks so loudly within that context around what the future of NFT games really looks like.
100%. Actually, I won't spoil too much, but we actually have that exact track idea in the metaverse coming up. But the really important part was Yes, but the really important part for us was we have these challenges and the technology that you're dealing with, and we've decided to do something very ambitious and make sure that we're on multiple chains as well. And as you know, a lot of these technologies are kind of like back in the early mobile days of GSM and the different types of networks where people are saying you can't use this network unless you've got a certain device, or you can't join us unless you've got this particular thing. So we thought, how do we not be maximalists? How do we open this up to everybody? How do we beat multiple chains? And behind the scenes, we're still very much in the phase of saying, well, it's really hard to bridge something from this chain to this chain. So what we're going to have to do is put a lookup, for example. So you might have that F1 NFT, and we'd be able to say, if you hold this NFT, then you have access to be able to recreate an image or interface or do whatever it is in our space, even if you have the same thing. These types of workarounds, you've just got to put the pretty user interface and mechanism on top. But that's the exciting thing about this space. We're that early that we're actually seriously having these conversations every day, trying to work out how you get these things to connect without it looking like the way we see it. How do we make it so that the user presses a one button and it's done? And that's what's really exciting. It's discouraging, and you're thinking, gosh, it's quite antiquated and very difficult because it's so new and raw. The opportunity that is about to lie ahead for all the people that are using this technology as both end users and creators is, I don't think it's possible to contain when you're speaking about it if you turn on the hood.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I guess the only thing I would add to that is that so for anyone on the AMA who isn't aware, I was lucky enough to moderate a panel at Australian Blockchain Week, and Benny was very kind to join us. But I really had to fight for that panel. The industry association recognized that DeFi and NFTs was important, but hadn't really prioritized it on the schedule. And when I looked into this, it was super interesting because anyone who was kind of in the NFT space was looking at solving extremely different problems to the, say, enterprise or finance blockchain space. So when you just mentioned, how do we make interoperability and user experience so simple that all you have to do is press a button and, basically all of your wildest metaverse dreams come true? I can't imagine hearing that from someone who's working on enterprise blockchain, right? And this is why I get so excited about the potential for gaming to be a pathway to mass scale adoption of crypto, because it's just thinking about the ways that crypto can facilitate user activity or facilitate user experience just in a totally different way. So that's why I get excited in terms of talking to people like yourself, Benny, because you're just thinking about this problem from a very, very, very different perspective.
And actually, it's a very interesting point you make, and it's slightly off tangent, but it's very, very much related. When you actually look at what we look at, we have to make very difficult decisions every day, because what we say is, if we don't have a federated login system, for example, so if we don't have a system where people can log into one thing and then use all of our products and services, then they're going to have to have a Wax wallet, an ETH wallet, a BSC wallet or access. They're going to have this, they're going to have that. And as you grow your products and services, it's going to get super confusing. And this is a problem that everybody in the space faces. So what you have to do sometimes is sit down and you have to block the noise of make the token price go up by 2% or pump out an announcement or whatever. And you have to sometimes sit down and take a difficult decision and say, right, for us to get a simplified user experience and for it to be easy for people, we have to have them scream at us for a while, because ultimately it's going to mean there's more people coming in and there's more adoption and it's going to be easier to use. And that's the balance that you have to always be juggling as a project. And You talked about the enterprise people. It's just so much easier just to be able to say, let's just focus on making money. Let's not worry about user experience. Let's just worry about cramming people into high scale, low margin, but by volume business models. I understand why people take shortcuts, and I understand why people take those pathways. But for the people trying to do the right thing and trying to make this experience easier for people to access, it is difficult because the tools that are available are designed to build on one platform or one system. So we're continually in a situation where, I'll use a metaphor, where we're on Google trying to Google what to do next, and there's no answers. That's the metaphor I use. But you ring around, you talk to people, and they say, no one's even trying to do that. Why would you try and do that? Just do this because that's what makes money. So it's a really interesting battle, and I hope more traditional legacy people come across that believe in customer experience and believe that they can actually make a difference and actually stick it out, because it is probably the hardest. I've done turnarounds my whole life, and this is 10 times harder, because if you turn around, at least people are all rooting for the same outcome and pushing in the same direction, whereas in this space, that's not the case. So it's a hard battle, but I think it's a very, very worthwhile. If we can make a dent in Southeast Asia and help some people do what the types of things that Axie have done by unlocking that, introducing more people to the digital economy, I think that's something that our kids can be proud of.
Yeah, for sure. And it's all about user experience, isn't it? Like, at the end of the day, there needs to be a real incentive to need to use crypto, and the user experience has to be seamless and enjoyable. I think, banks have left a lot of room for potential in terms of improving user experience. So I don't think most people in developed economies have very high expectations of financial products and services, because the traditional industry hasn't really innovated this much. Like, even in fintech, it's fragmented, and I'd say fragmented, not decentralized purposely. There's just a lot of potential there in order to make it better. But the cool thing about NFT gaming and things like KOGs, F1 Delta Time, Axie, all these different games that we've mentioned tonight, people play them because they're fun and they're exciting and they're cool, and they have this added incentive that you could earn money. And hey, if you've got money sitting in a wallet, that's a pretty good incentive to figure out how to cash it out. Like, even if it's quite difficult to cash it out, well, you have the incentive already because it's sitting there. Otherwise, it's just going to be unused money sitting in a wallet. You don't do anything with it. I think the problem with crypto otherwise is that unless a friend said, hey, I just sent you, a bit of Bitcoin and you have to figure out how to cash it out, then people don't really have that much incentive to figure it out if they were already served by the traditional financial system. So
that's 100% correct. I think you've hit a very big nail on the head there. What's going to make me move from something that I'm comfortable with and comfortable in? And as someone's just written above, I tried to buy RFOX in February and it was really difficult. I had to do this, I had to do that. What we're saying is we're building a better alternative, but it's 50 times harder and not easy to use. So that's the race. The race is to make it easier and to make it that way. But like you said, if you've got a fun game, you imagine if you've got a fun game, playing that game, you're making money, you're doing well from it, you get it, it's easy to cash out through Gcash or whoever you're using as your local payment provider. And then you see that the tools for creating or adding value or creating your own assets is just as accessible to you. That's like the next iteration, and that's where I think we can see some tremendous value unlocked, especially for the one thing, Leah, maybe you can also share your experience because you've been here since 2018. I had the fortune of living in the Philippines for quite some time, and if you go into a house, someone can sing, someone can pick up a guitar and play a guitar. The talent in Southeast Asia in general is massive. I attribute it to the fact that when we were kids in the Western world, we had lots of gadgets and gizmos and They might be old compared to what they are now, but there's such amazing talent in Southeast Asia that if it existed anywhere else in the world, it would be, most of these people would be on their wildest dreams. I just think that some of that talent has to be shown and brought to the rest of the world.
Yeah, so there's two things there. The talent question is one that's really dear to my heart, so I want to really address that properly. But before that, I also just wanted to point out that when we talk about crypto being difficult and the need to make it easier to access and to improve user experience, none of this will happen if the community doesn't come first. And this is why it's so important to have the correct incentives in place, because when people are incentivized properly, the community rallies around it, someone figures out how to do it, they jump through the hoops, and then they show their friends, they show their family, they tell their friends, they tell their family, and it starts to spread. And I think that's what was really unique about Axie Infinity in the Philippines, that a small group of people recognized the opportunity and they started to share it. But it wasn't as simple as just saying, hey, there's a cool game, you could make money, just play it now. There was a lot for people to learn. The game itself is complicated. Cashing out to fiat is difficult. And people really relied on advice from their friends. And then people started doing really cool stuff, like setting up YouTube channels that would educate the community and, provide this kind of evergreen content, perhaps to just protect their inboxes so they weren't constantly getting asked, FAQs by people every single day. But it's that kind of community response that actually leads to infrastructure building, or even new products and services that are designed specifically for the community. So, for example, here in the Philippines, BloomX, which is a BSP, so the Banco Central in Pilipinas, is our central bank, and BloomX is registered by them. They offer an OTC service via Facebook where you can just message them and say, hey, I've got SLP, which is the in-game reward token earned in Axie Infinity, and I want to exchange it direct for Philippine pesos. And you can just do that by Facebook Messenger. That's incredible. Prior to that, people had to jump through a lot more hoops to actually cash out. But it was this registered, licensed exchange that recognized the demand and delivered a tailored product and service for that particular market. So without the community, there is nothing. And that's why I sort of think that these AMA sessions are really, really important, because without the community, there will be no progress. And all the builders can't really do anything unless they can demonstrate that there's real traction. So that's important. In terms of talent in Southeast Asia, so I guess like a lot of Western people had outsourced to the Philippines for about 2 years before we came here. We had this brilliant team in the Philippines who was working on building a crypto payments gateway that I was involved with. Prior to that, I was in Europe trying to hire Solidity developers. For anyone who isn't familiar, that's the language of the Ethereum blockchain. And they were very expensive and very entitled. And it was really difficult to find someone who cared about our startup at all, who was affordable. Actually, it was totally impossible. And then we kind of came to the decision. It was like, why are we wasting all of our time over here when we have a brilliant team of 4 in the Philippines who want to take on extra stuff? At the time, they didn't have the right experience. And I think that's probably the difficulty for most people in Southeast Asia. They don't get the exposure, they don't get the experience, and it's really difficult to level up if you don't have that. So we thought, you know what, stuff it. Let's just go there for a month and spend some time intensive with them and see what happens. And it was the most wonderful decision that we ever made. Spending time on the ground with them, they just gobbled up everything that we could give to them. They were so keen to learn, so keen to demonstrate their potential. And, the end of the story is that I kind of wanted to make the Philippines my home base, maybe for the rest of my life, who knows. But the key thing for that, and what I've seen again in the play to earn movement, is that what's really critical to understand, like when we're talking about all these hoops to jump through, we're not talking about people who even finished school or who have worked for a large company or who have even earned a large salary in their life. These are people who probably would not be a target market for DeFi protocols or any crypto project for that matter, because they would probably assume that they don't have digital literacy, they don't have the ability to be able to do this stuff. And the fact is, they always had the ability to begin with. They have the smarts, they have the ambition, they have the determination, the commitment. They're just not given the opportunity. And I think that was what was really unique about Play to Earn, because there are no gatekeepers in Play to Earn. Anyone can get involved, and if they're willing to commit and go through the hoops, go over the hurdles, they can earn significant money. And you know what? They're willing to go through it. It's just no one gave them that chance before. So that's what's really key, I think, about this movement, that if people are given the chance, they will go the distance. You just need to give them an opportunity. And mobile technology has already done that. Internet penetration is pretty good here. I mean, it's not the best, but people can access the internet and they can afford mobile data, even if it's in small packets. But someone needs to give them an opportunity to earn, and if they do, my general belief is that people will really take the opportunity and run with it.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I think you made some great points there, and it is a great part of the world, and people do want that opportunity, and they do take it with both hands. Where everyone here my story before me, but one of my favourites is when I was at Grab, the drivers, they'd give them these very, very complicated incentive stories, and they could hardly speak English, or old experts that had decided to drive in. I said, "I want to present this."
Benny, your mic is really bad. We can barely hear you.
Jeez. I will take over for a sec, Pete, and I'll try and switch.
Well, that sounded better.
Yeah, right when you say switch.
Yeah, you said you were going to switch. It sounded really good.
Is that better?
I was just going to say,
that's better, Benny.
Hero Gamer said, looks like I need to withdraw my McDonald's application and apply in the Philippines. I was just going to say, I heard this a lot. I mean, a lot of people are pointing out that it's like, okay, the returns that I can make from a job are not great in the Philippines, and also the conditions are not great. Like, I could take a job in retail or fast food service or whatever, and I might make, 10,000 pesos a month. And I've also got to travel to that place, so I'm going to have costs in terms of travel costs, but also the time taken out of my day to get there. And anyone who has been to the Philippines will know that the traffic here is ridiculous. So traveling 2 hours to work and 2 hours home from work is not unusual. So, I mean, these are huge costs to pay. Now, if you could actually earn potentially the same, or maybe even more than that, from your phone at home, and you don't have to do it within the hours that anyone else has asked you to do. You can do it within your own time. I mean, that is a pretty incredible incentive. So I'm not surprised that there's a lot of people going, oh my God, I want to be part of this. Anyway, I'm sorry, his new mic set up now, so I'll stop talking, but I just thought
Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah. Yeah, you sound very clear.
Okay, awesome. I've switched from Wi-Fi to data. What I was saying was the Grab drivers, I've told the story before, they were older, generally above 60 when they first started, feature phone experienced only, and they'd hand them these 10-page, very detailed explainers on how they would earn an incentive, and most of them were semi-literate at best, and yet if you gave them an opportunity or a sniff at this structure and the chance to earn, because I used to say you've got to make it much more simplified, they'd get it translated, get it abbreviated, and it would be passed around in short text form within a day. And that's the thing. Like you say, the reason that Axie and all of these types of games did take off, even when it was so difficult, is because it did provide a solution. It did provide an alternative. And the floodgates are really going to open up when more of this BlueMex type of just send a message on Facebook and you can get cash. When this starts to really take off, the products are marketed better. It's an easier path, less resistance, easier on and off ramps. We're really going to see an absolute explosion. And what I'm really excited about from the gaming and play to earn side of things is that we're going to see a great decoupling from the crypto market. And what I mean by that is this whole gaming space and the play to earn space will become a lot less reliant on Bitcoin's price movements, and it will become self-sustaining, because a lot of the people that are actually going to be interacting, playing, using, creating and earning may not even have very deep knowledge or need to have knowledge of the crypto space in general, just the games that they're playing, which is, I think, is actually good news.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess in addition to that, the only thing I would add, and I know we're sort of coming to time, but a lot of people have been saying that, you know, it's a bit of a concern. If all the jobs are going to the metaverse, what are people going to do in the Philippines? You know, it's going to be a problem for a developing economy that really needs skills and labor. But the reality that I've seen is very different. So, you know, I just mentioned that the idea to avoid traffic would be a wonderful benefit, and that's true. But I've actually seen a lot of people say, you know what, I'll keep my everyday job, but I'm going to play Axie on the bus to and from work. And I can only play, you know, 4 hours a day, depending on the amount of energy that I get. So, you know, that actually optimizes my time. So that to me actually points out even further what you were saying about the talent here in the Philippines. Like, people talk about the problems around productivity and returns, but it's just that people haven't been given these opportunities. And if you give them the opportunities, then they will make the most of it. And that's a perfect example of someone saying, well, you know, I'm not going to opt out of extra money. I just want to optimize my time. I'll still go to my everyday job, but I want to make sure that the time I spend you know, commuting to and from work has an ROI on it as well. And I hear from people that they're using that money to invest in their families, invest in their homes, invest in their children's future. And I think that's what gets me really excited about what the Philippines will look like in maybe 2-3 decades from now, because the people are really thinking about what the future looks like. And it's not just the Philippines, it's Indonesia, Venezuela, Brazil. We're seeing it in many different emerging economies that share the same kind of story, where they've just been deprived of opportunity, which must be so frustrating for people who have so much talent, but are never given that chance to prove themselves. And I think this is what that represents. They've been given a chance to prove themselves, and like you said, they are taking it and running with it.
Exactly. Exactly. So thank you. Look, that's probably a good note to leave on. And I want to just say two things. Thank you for spending your time to come along and have a chat to us tonight, and having a chance to chat to one of those communities that you exactly referenced earlier. This community has been with us. Majority of people have been with us since day one, and we've had a lot of people been welcomed in since. But the passion and the level of enthusiasm that this community has, and the fact that they've spent their time as well coming to listen to your comments tonight and to us talk. Thank you very, very much for everybody spending their time with us. Really do appreciate it. I hope you got something out of it. And an extra big thank you to Leah. We've already got people saying, can you please drop your wax wallet address so we can get started with some KOGs? Yeah, fantastic. Leah, maybe you can also just put in, if people want to follow you, it's links to your socials, so you can follow you.
So I have a parting gift for the community. If I can take 30 more seconds to explain it to you. So, if you could just share in the chat, have people actually seen the documentary? Like, do they know the Play to Earn documentary that we made in the Philippines?
We have linked it on the socials.
Yeah, we've shared in the chat at the start of the call.
Yeah, and the
Okay,
socials.
I have a never before seen little B-roll shot to share with you. So if anyone is familiar with it, you'll remember the Lola and Lolo scene that most people really adore because they're just so surprised that there's an elderly couple playing NFT games. But when we left their home outside, there were some children on the street playing Pogs. And we actually got some brilliant footage of them playing Pogs. It was actually, yeah. So we actually went and bought them because the kids, you know, like they come from, you know, very poor homes, like full of love, but not full of money. And they didn't have many Pogs. So in the Philippines, you can buy big sheets of Pogs from the sari stores. And it's not much. It's like 40 pesos or something for a whole sheet. But we went and bought them all and like gave them to the kids. They just went nuts. Like, I want this one. I want that one. And then we filmed them playing Pogs on the street. So after this, I will post the link. No one has ever seen this footage ever before, but I just got the guys. I just had the idea when we were chatting to bring it up. I'll post it here, and that's for you guys.
Oh, thank you very, very much. So please say a big thank you to Leah for coming along, and we will, I'm sure, cross paths many, many times in the near future, and hopefully we can do something meaningful together in the region.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been really fun. Really cool to meet the community, and so glad to see that you guys share the same vision. It's really nice to connect with like-minded people.
Thank you, Leah.
Okay, everybody give her a follow and thank you very much, and enjoy the DJ hour, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks a lot, Leah.
Cheers, Leah. Bye.
See you guys. Have a great week.
You as well, Benny.